Good evening, and thank you for being with us for this special edition of Titre, an edition in which we will focus on the special bilateral, cultural, and historical ties between India and Mauritius, a relationship which has gained momentum over the years, but also during the visit of His Excellency Sri Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, to Mauritius last year during our National Day celebrations, and also the visit of the Honorable Prime Minister of Mauritius to India, and recently with the visit of His Excellency Sri Jaishankar, the External Affairs Minister of India, to Mauritius just last week for a two-day state visit and also for the IOC conference. As we can see, the ties between India and Mauritius have gained momentum, and to talk on all of this, we have with us today the High Commissioner of India to Mauritius, His Excellency Anurag Srivastava. Excellency, thank you for being with us. And we are very happy to have you with us today. And let's get straight into the topic. So how do you see the strength of the relationship of India and Mauritius right now?
Thank you, Shahzad, and thank you for having me on the show. My greetings to your viewers. The strength of India-Mauritius partnership, to me, is contributed by four elements. One, the shared history that we have, the close people-to-people ties between us, the deep trust between our leaders, and of course, the shared purpose that we have. The shared history, as you know, is contributed by our ancestors who came here in large numbers almost 2 centuries back, and who have been, through their sweat and toil, responsible for building this great nation. Of course, the people-to-people ties finds its expression in our shared culture through languages, festivals, cuisine, etc. Then there's very deep trust over decades between our political leadership, and more importantly, we share a purpose because of the common interests that we have. But above all, what I would say is that, to me, the most important strength of our relationship is the close ties and the sentiment and the spirit in which it is conducted, which makes it go beyond diplomatic relationship. It is a relationship which is really more than a diplomatic relationship, and it is best captured in what our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi said when he came here last year, that Mauritius is not just a partner country, it is family to us. So it is truly a khoon ka rishta, which is also a dil ka rishta.
Definitely. And we also have this high-level engagement, political engagement between both countries, between both leaders also. And what we can say is the recent visit of Dr. Jaishankar was a key moment in bilateral relations. So what were the key outcomes of the visit of Sri Jaishankar?
External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar's visit was a very significant visit, and there were many substantive outcomes in many areas. Of course, he was here to participate in the Indian Ocean Conference, the 9th edition of which was hosted by Mauritius, which is very significant because Mauritius is the first African country which has hosted this prestigious event. Dr. Jaishankar delivered the keynote address, and he participated in the inaugural session alongside Prime Minister Dr. Naveen Ramgoolam. And thereafter, there was also a bilateral component to this visit. In the bilateral component, there were several outcomes. If I have to list a few, this would be the inauguration of the renal transplant unit, which is a facility which would provide great relief to kidney patients. The inauguration of an online capacity building program for Mauritian civil servants. Then we had the handing over of electric buses. And of course, an announcement of operationalization of our special economic package. Last but not the least is also this government-to-government arrangement for supply of petroleum products, and the two leaders announced that we would be moving towards finalizing it. So all in all, it was a very, very significant visit.
Definitely, we'll go in depth on all of these topics. So first of all, let's have a look at the visit and the bilateral dimension. So what does it signal about the current stage of the India-Mauritius partnership?
I think that's a very good question. And I will take you back to what I just said, which is the last outcome in terms of the government-to-government supply arrangement for petroleum products, which in the current scenario where supply chains are facing challenges, it shows that we stand with Mauritius, India stands with Mauritius, even in challenging times like these. And therefore, it also shows how this partnership has evolved. It started off as an historical partnership. Then in the middle of the 20th century, even before Mauritius' independence, became a modern bilateral partnership with elements of capacity building, etc. And now it is a partnership which is further evolving with the times.
So definitely when Mauritius needed India's help, so India was there for Mauritius. So what next on these arrangements which are going to happen between India and Mauritius? Further, talking about oil and gas.
Well, energy security is something which is very, very important. And in fact, it is not just a sectoral issue. It is now something which is becoming central to our economic partnership. Because as you know, energy powers economies. Now, if I speak of the energy partnership and this government-to-government arrangement for supply of oil and gas, or our earlier agreement that we have to work together in other broader areas of energy partnership, there are two elements to it. One, of course, is the energy security element in order to ensure that supply chains are resilient, they are strong, and we have a regular supply of petroleum products in this country. And this is an arrangement which has been in place in the past, and it is really an effort to revive it in the form that it was. The second part to it is something which goes beyond the immediate, and this is in terms of the energy transition. Now, you would know both our countries have climate goals. We have goals which require us to have a certain amount of capacity of generation through renewable energy. We have goals to reduce emission of greenhouse gases. And in that, we have a very strong partnership, whether be it in terms of the largest solar PV farm project that we've set up here, or the recent initiative to set up a floating solar project, or the handing over of the electric buses that was done during the visit.
Which all form part of the special economic package of India to Mauritius, which were also signed during Sri Jaishankar's visit. So how do you see the further implementation of these projects you have mentioned?
Well, the operationalization of this framework that I just mentioned for the special economic package would mean that we've agreed on modalities to implement it. Now, these modalities would ensure that there is joint implementation of these projects by both governments, by putting in place processes that we have agreed to, and which will ensure faster implementation of these projects on the ground.
And do you think that we need to have a special cell to be able to see these projects implementation? We know that they are going to be projects which are going to be financed by the government, but who are going to be by the private sector. But how can we ensure this effective implementation?
Well, this is precisely the reason why this framework has been put in place. This framework, as I mentioned to you, provides for joint implementation of these projects. There are certain announcements, there are certain delivery timelines, and the effort is to ensure that the spirit of the announcement is met through the delivery timelines, both in terms of ensuring that it is fulfilled, the projects are fulfilled within a certain time, and in the desired quality that it is required to be. And therefore, processes at various levels are put in place. There are mechanisms for joint review of this project and of these projects, and it is essentially to ensure that we fulfill the vision of our leaders.
Definitely. And we also have several projects which also have been outlined, including the new hospital and also the Ayush Center infrastructure projects like the M4. And with regards to the Ayush Center of Excellence in Mauritius, where does the project currently stand right now?
Well, the Ayush Center of Excellence is largely a project which reflects the importance that both our countries, our communities, place on traditional medicine systems. And therefore, the idea is to set up a large facility. This facility would be in the form of a teaching hospital plus a treatment diagnostic facility. It is pitched as a center of excellence, not only in Mauritius, but also for the region. So essentially, it would be a center which would provide for holistic well-being, and it would be a self-contained facility for treatment through the traditional systems of medicine.
And do we have a date for the project to be finished in Mauritius?
Well, I'll take you back to the SEP. Now, the SEP was announced in September last year. Mm-hmm. And the effort has been that there should be a very early rollout of the SEP. So as soon as the SEP was announced, you would recall in November, one component of the SEP was already operationalized in the form of the 25 million cash grant, which was handed over to the government of Mauritius. And in December, we had a team from India which came here for discussions with the Ministry of Finance and other line ministries to see how we can agree on various processes, modalities for implementation, etc., to ensure faster rollout. The process is such that now we have the exchange of letters which has been operationalized, and we are entering the phase of implementation. For example, the project like the Ayush Center of Excellence you mentioned. Now this Center of Excellence would have a facility, would have a certain process to implement it, and in order to roll out that process, we have put in place a framework. Our expectation is that in coming days, we will have all the necessary elements to implement this project in a fast-track manner.
And there is also, as we remember, the forensic laboratory. Do we have a timeline for that one?
Well, the forensic laboratory project is essentially a project which is designed to ensure that the criminal justice system, the law enforcement system is strengthened. This project is already under implementation. This is a pre-SEP project. And this project implementation schedule is such that the expectation is that it will very soon be completed. Our expectation is that it would be within this year itself.
And you mentioned the Indian Ocean and security in the Indian Ocean, which is very dear and very important for both our countries. India has also mentioned that there will be a defense attaché which will be sent to Mauritius. So can you give us a bit more details on this?
Let me put this in context. You know, we are both in a region, the Indian Ocean region, where we have certain common interests. We want this region to be safe, secure, and open. We face certain threats in this region in the form of piracy, in the form of illegal fishing, in the form of drug trafficking. Our maritime security cooperation is essentially geared to ensure that our common interests are protected. We are protected against these threats. How do we do this? We do this through supply of assets and equipment to the government of Mauritius, to the National Coast Guard, through training of its personnel, through joint exercises, etc. One element of this is that Mauritius has a very vast EEZ, and this EEZ needs constant protection, constant surveillance. And therefore, our effort through this maritime security cooperation is to ensure that our common interests in this space that we occupy, the Indian Ocean region, are safeguarded. The appointment of the defense attaché, as you mentioned, is a natural progression of our maritime security cooperation.
Hi, Commissioner. We are talking about the importance of security in the Indian Ocean region. So the IOC conference, the 9th IOC conference, came at a very opportune time when there are so many geopolitical tensions in the world, which are also affecting our region and our countries.
Yes, certainly, Shahzad. In fact, the 9th IOC, which was hosted in Mauritius, under the theme Collective Stewardship for Indian Ocean Governance, is very appropriate in terms of its timing, because the kind of challenges that we have faced due to the prevailing geopolitical tensions has focused attention on elements like energy security. There have been very useful deliberations during this conference on various themes, including energy security, but also on maritime security, on trade and development, on sustainability. All of these are very topical issues, and these are issues which will remain the focus of attention for times to come. So therefore, this conference, this forum, is a very important body for agenda setting, and its role will be very significant. And
it also is in line with the Mahasagar project of Shri Narendra Modi, should we say, because he's the one who's behind the Sagar project and also the Mahasagar project.
Absolutely. In fact, for the benefit of your viewers, I must tell you that Mahasagar stands for mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across regions. And this is something which was announced in March 2025 when Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi was here. Incidentally, the Sagar vision, security and growth in the region, was also announced in Mauritius in 2015. Now, what Mahasagar does is it expands on the Sagar vision. It makes it more broader, both in terms of its scope as well as in terms of geography. It includes elements like trade for development, capacity building, sustainability, sustainable finance, and things like that. And therefore, it is something which is very, very relevant, and it is something which was broadly covered in the deliberations in the conference itself.
And this conference also gave the occasion for all the member countries present here in Mauritius to hold bilateral talks. We know that Sri Jaishankar was here and had bilateral talks with his other counterparts also. So this gives this region a strategic importance in a way.
Certainly. The focus of attention, as I said, it is very significant that this conference was hosted in Mauritius. Mauritius became the first African country to be hosting this particular event. And therefore, the focus of attention, because of the prevailing situation in the region and beyond, is something which focused attention on this particular event and the deliberations and discussions that took place, as you would have seen, has resonated in other parts of the world.
And you have already mentioned the Mahasagar project, which helps countries of the region with also the neighborhood first policy of the Indian government. And we know that India has helped us to protect our EEZ with navigational charts. So now that we can put forward the next question, which is on the Chagos Archipelago, which remains a key issue in the region. What is India's position and support that Mauritius can expect?
India's position has always been very consistent on this. When the agreement was signed in May last year, we welcomed this historic milestone. We have always supported decolonization and the full recognition of sovereignty of Mauritius. On the request from Mauritius for surveillance of the additional EEZ, which was made in September last year, we have assured them of our full support.
And this does not limit, the support of India does not limit itself to only the Chagos Archipelago. And you mentioned earlier that there were so many discussions which were held between our leaders, and then after following that there were MOUs which were signed, for example, for the iGood Karma Yogi project, for the training of civil servants, and then we also have the other projects. So can we just have a look at the implementation of these projects? There should be a timeline, don't you agree?
In fact, you mentioned the iGood Karma Yogi project, and let me expand on this. The iGood Karma Yogi project is something which is very unique. This is something which has come about as a result of the vision of our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. The belief is that we need a well-trained civil service in order to deliver to the expectations of our citizens. And this particular project provides for, in India, it provides for a very large scalable model for anytime, anywhere training of civil servants. What we've done under this project in Mauritius is that we've taken forward our existing cooperation for training of civil servants of Mauritius. You would know that the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Public Service and Innovation was inaugurated by the two prime ministers in March last year. We also have an MOU for training of 500 civil servants of Mauritius. Now, taking all this forward, in the Karma Yogi program that we have provided a special window of access for Mauritian civil servants, and that is what was launched during the visit of External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar. What it would mean is that civil servants in Mauritius can avail of this capacity building initiative from anywhere they are, and this would provide for the kind of capacities that we need to create in order to ensure good delivery.
And our last question will be, looking ahead, what concrete outcomes would you like to see to emerge from both this visit and the conference?
Let me start with the bilateral. As you know, this is a relationship, this is a partnership which has evolved over a period of time. Starting with historical ties, it has moved into a modern bilateral relationship, and today it is a very strong, vibrant, multifaceted partnership. But a partnership also has to be future ready. And that is what the effort is, and that is what was also the focus of discussions during the visit of External Affairs Minister, to look at future areas of growth for the partnership, renewable energy, training training of civil servants, elements involving the youth, like AI and digital technologies, etc. And these are the areas that we are working on to ensure that this partnership is future ready. The second part of your question pertains to the conference. Now, the conference is more in the regional context. As you know, growth and prosperity requires regional stability. And we are very optimistic with the kind of discussions that have been taking place in fora like these on issues of concern to the region. We will be able to forge a common consensus for stronger regional cooperation towards working in securing our common interests.
And regional cooperation, and this was highlighted during the conference, that there should be more South-South cooperation in the Indian Ocean, right?
Absolutely. In fact, if you recall, during the G20 presidency of India in 2022, that was the spirit that such cooperation should reflect the priorities of the Global South, as well as look at how we can work together in taking forward our common interests.
So thank you very much, High Commissioner, for replying to our invitation and for being with us today to reply to all our questions. And I hope our viewers got a better idea of how the relationship between India and Mauritius has evolved and has strengthened over the years, and what are the new avenues of collaboration and what we expect from these ties that we have. Thank you for being with us. So this was the special edition of Grand Titre with a focus on the strategic relationship between India and Mauritius. Thank you for being with us. Good evening.